Number 1. Sleeping. This story isn't so much about Halloween itself, as it is about something that happened to me on Halloween night. I was 16 years old at the time. My family lived in a pretty affluent neighborhood. I always enjoyed Halloween, even when I was too old to go trick-or-treating. Our trick-or-treating was always very amazing. Tons of children from my own neighborhood and other neighborhoods in the town would come to my area to search for candy. My family always gave out full-size candy bars, so we were always pretty popular. Well, this night, it wasn't as great as it had been before. My parents and younger brother were out of town, and unfortunately, around 3 in the afternoon, I began to get a migraine headache. I suffered from these often. I knew when it hit that it was going to be a doozy, too. I'd probably missed the entire trick-or-treating event. I didn't want the kids in the neighborhood to go without candy. But I also didn't want them knocking on the door when I had a migraine. So I went out and got the candy bowl and put it on the porch. I put a sign out there that no one was home, and for each kid to take one candy bar from the huge bowl. I also wrote that no one was home, so please do not ring the doorbell if the bowl goes empty. There was an obvious security camera that would ensure that each kid only took one bar. I felt so bad about the whole thing, but if you've ever had a severe migraine, you would know exactly how I was feeling. The best thing for me to do was get some solid sleep. Hopefully, when I woke up in the morning, I wouldn't be hurting anymore. The kids were very respectful. I woke up several times, but it wasn't because the kids were being loud or anything. I just woke up. I'd look over at the clock, and then promptly fall right back to sleep. The night crawled by. Before I knew it, it was dark outside. Not too long after that, I woke up and looked at the clock. It was past trick-or-treating time. I fell back asleep after that. My headache hadn't gone away yet, but it was getting better each time I woke up. But then, I woke up again. I tried to turn to look at the clock. I realized then that I couldn't move, even though my migraine was much better. I had to groan inwardly as I realized what had just happened. In addition to migraines, I was prone to bouts of sleep paralysis too. And it seemed like right then, it decided to strike. I knew it would be best to just close my eyes and pray that I would go right back to sleep. But I couldn't right away. I was beginning to feel panicky, because when I had hallucinations, they were awful hallucinations, but they were auditory as well. So closing my eyes wasn't always going to immediately solve the issue. Still, I tried. I closed my eyes and prayed I'd be falling back to sleep really quickly. As I lay there, I heard something. It was a creaking noise. It was as if someone were opening my bedroom door. Rather than look, though, I just closed my eyes tighter, but the noise didn't quit. I knew I would fall asleep if I was thinking about it, so I opened my eyes. My heart rate increased as I saw something by the door. The door was a bit open, and there was something looking in the room at me. It was some strange goblin-looking creature. The only thing I could compare it to were the Gamorrean, those green pig-like guards that worked for Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, I was nerdy enough to know what they were called. And it was looking through the partially open door at me. In fact, Even though its eyes were pretty dark, I could tell that we were looking each other in the eyes. Slowly, the creature opened the door. He cautiously approached me. I felt my breathing accelerate. I had to keep telling myself that it was not real. As it got closer, I just decided to close my eyes. Either I would fall back asleep or hear noises, but at least I wouldn't have to look at it anymore. I still heard creaking noises, though. He was walking around the room. After a while, though, I heard it walk back towards the door. I only knew this because I heard the noise of the door closing again. I opened my eyes a bit and looked in the room. I was still unable to move, but the monster was gone. After a while, I was able to fall back asleep. The next time I woke up, the sleep paralysis was gone, along with my migraine. I got up and went to get a glass of water. I was shocked as I walked into the living room. Someone had broken into our house, and we were obviously robbed. Things were overturned, and things were missing. This must have happened when I was sleeping. I went and called the police. As I mentioned, we lived in a pretty upscale neighborhood. We had security cameras, and when the police took them and looked at them, they confirmed that the person who robbed us was dressed up like a green pig guard from Return of the Jedi. In fact, he was so confident in his disguise that he had even waved to the security camera before breaking into the house. My sign, left out for the trick-or-treaters, had told him that nobody was home, so that's why he targeted our house. But the monster that I thought was created by my mind on Halloween during sleep paralysis was real, and he had been in my bedroom with me for several moments, and the police never caught him either. The costume was just that good. Number 2. My trick-or-treat horror. When I was 12 years old, I was getting to that age when my friends began thinking we were getting too old to go out and trick-or-treat. I always loved doing it, so I wasn't about to completely give it up before I was really ready to. Fortunately, although my other buddies kept talking about not going out anymore, they ended up being just talk mostly. Plus, trick-or-treating to them was also an alibi. They wanted to do another great Halloween tradition, playing pranks. So we got into our costumes, got our bags, and hit some houses. My friends were also a bit rude to some of the people that gave us candy. They would make sarcastic comments about how lousy the candy was, and one of my friends even told an old woman that her candy was so awful that he was going to come back and egg her house later. I was embarrassed each time they did something like that, but they were my friends, so I didn't tell them to quit. The trick-or-treating lasted about 4 hours in my town. My friends and I hit it early, and only went around for about an hour. After that, they really were in the mood to go out and find the true fun in Halloween. Horror. First, we went and we hung out in the graveyard for a little while. That didn't last long, because there were much older teenagers out there drinking beer. I remember my friend Aaron went up and actually asked them to give us a beer. The guys told us to get the hell out of the cemetery before they kicked our asses, though, and we moved on. They had been planning on egging some houses, but they couldn't do that until the trick-or-treating was over. So we had to find something else to keep us busy until then. The teenagers killed our cemetery plans, so we went out in search of something else that was scary. That was when a friend of mine suggested that we go to the house. I think every neighborhood has a house that kids talk about as if it were something scary. Ours was an abandoned house. The kids always told the story that a father went crazy in the house and murdered his entire family before putting them down the garbage disposal. Ever since then, no one wanted to live there. So the house stayed empty and was a source of much horror throughout the year, not just on Halloween. Kids our age would normally dare each other to go up to it, or go in it, or anything like that. Most kids would just either do it or they would chicken out. We had stories of what would have happened to those kids, and we thought they were true back when we were young. It was down a dark and dead-end street. I guess that only helped its reputation. We were surprised when we went to it, though. Trick-or-treating was far from over. There were nearly no kids on that road at all. There were also no teenagers or anyone hanging out there. But even stranger, there was a jack-o'-lantern on the porch. It didn't have a candle in it, and it looked like it was already in the stages of decay, but someone had definitely put a jack-o'-lantern on the porch. "Hey, Bobby," my friend Mark addressed me. "I dare you to go smash that pumpkin." I can't even begin to tell you how much I did not want to do this. I didn't want to go up to that house during the daytime, much less in the dark on Halloween night. But I also didn't want to be mocked by my buddies for the rest of my life either. When your friends dare you to do something like this, you generally do it. Slowly, I walked up to the house. God, my knees were shaking. I was sure my friends could see it. I just wanted to turn and run off, but I knew I couldn't. The pumpkin was sitting right up the staircase, on the opening to the porch. The rest of the porch had like a 2-foot-tall fence blocking it from view. This was not very comforting to me, I'll let you know. I imagined something, some person or even a monster, crouched down on the porch, out of view, waiting for me to ascend the stairs so it could grab me. Despite these thoughts, I was being egged on by my friends, so I walked up the steps and grabbed the pumpkin. I raised it up, about to smash it. That was when I thought I should probably look around the porch and see if anyone or anything was up there with me. I looked over to the right of me and froze. Something was on the porch with me, but it wasn't a monster. It was a body tied up, but I assumed it was dead. I screamed and threw the pumpkin down, smashing it. My friends all cheered for me and rushed up to the porch. When they looked over at what I saw, all 5 of us took off running down the street as quickly as we could. We booked over to George's house, as it was the closest to us. We told his dad, who didn't believe us at first, but we insisted and he called the police. When the police arrived, they didn't find a body on the porch, but upon going into the house, they found it there, which means that it was moved in a short time after we ran from the house, which also means we weren't alone when we were there. Whoever moved that body had to have been in the house. I wondered how close I had been to becoming another victim. Number 3. Cemetery. I grew out of things like trick-or-treating really quickly. I think I stopped going out when I was 10. I stayed home and tried to find other things to do. By the age of 13, I began going out with my friends on Halloween night. We didn't do anything like egg houses or anything. We just walked around the neighborhood and talked, and did things like that. And by the time I was 15, my friend George was able to get beer from his father, so he'd always bring it out. We'd go out drinking. We were always able to find somewhere to drink. Our favorite place was this abandoned house that was easy to get into. And we weren't able to do this anymore when I was 17, though. Whoever owned the house decided to go ahead and demolish it, so we had to find a new place to hang out on Halloween night. My friend suggested we go and drink beer in the local cemetery. I was hesitant, not because I found the cemetery scary in any way. I just thought it was disrespectful. But we either were going to the cemetery, or we were not going to find a place. I don't know why, but I had assumed that the cemetery would be filled with teenagers or kids. I think people like to scare each other and themselves on Halloween, but we really didn't see anyone. We looked around, and we eventually found a good area and settled down to drink. I was really on edge. Really on edge. Even the beer didn't help. There was just something about walking and sitting on people's graves that didn't sit well with me, and the beer wasn't really helping me to feel any better about it either. The rest of my friends didn't appear to be bothered at all, though. Hell, my friend Jim even leaned up against a gravestone while we chatted. We got pretty loopy, and when we did, I thought I had begun to hear noises, as if someone else was walking around the cemetery. I asked my friends if they heard anything. No one did. They told me it didn't really matter much anyway. It was Halloween, so of course, some kids were gonna be playing around in the cemetery. That was when Jim got the ingenious idea that he was gonna try to scare whoever it happened to be, if there really was someone out there. We all got quiet and listened. Sure enough, it sounded like someone else was walking around out there. And quietly, Jim had us all creep over to this tomb. His idea was that when whoever it was came around the corner, we all jump out and scream at them. Yeah, it was a lame idea. But we were pretty buzzed by that point anyway, so we weren't really at our creative peak. We still figured it would give the person the shock of their life, though. So we hid, and soon enough, heard the footsteps coming ever closer to the tomb. Jim was prepared to jump out, and we waited. When we knew whomever it was walking was just around the corner, Jim jumped around the corner of the tomb. First, he screamed, "Boo!" and then he gasped. We saw someone had grabbed Jim, and we looked around the corner. A big, hillbilly-looking man, twice the size of any one of us, had his hands around Jim's throat. George and I did our best to beat on the guy, to get him to let go of Jim, but the guy was made of iron or something. We tried to get him to let go, but he was way too strong, and we got worried by how bad he was shaking Jim by the throat, that he was gonna kill him, and kill him quickly. I did the one and only thing I could think of. I hauled back my leg as if I was going for a 60-yard field goal, and kicked the guy square in the crotch. Scary thing is, he didn't even let go right away. I had to kick the man again before he let go of Jim. We pulled Jim up off the ground and booked to make it out of the cemetery. I must have kicked him hard enough because he didn't come after us. We called the cops. And get this, though. The man worked in the cemetery. He was just making his rounds, making sure that kids weren't hanging out since it was Halloween night. He did get arrested, though, because even though we were trespassing, the force he used against us was extremely excessive. You could literally see the hand marks on his neck, and he was lucky he didn't experience a crushed larynx. Hey all, Killer Orange Cat here. I was a bit surprised at how early I got these Halloween stories. I can't say I mind though. All of them were really good. I hope you enjoyed them, and there will be more Halloween stories to come. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please consider hitting the subscribe button below, or use the icon of Ichigo that will appear at the end of this closing. Feel free to leave some comments to let me know what you think of the video, and consider sharing it with someone you think might enjoy it. You can always follow me and Ichigo on Facebook and Twitter. If you have a story you like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. My only requirement is that the story is original, meaning it has not been read on any other YouTube channel. The link to the merchandise store and the subreddit will be included in the description as well. Feel free to take a look around both of them. But for now, please don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.